Hello there, everyone. Dr. Tharp here. I know it's been a while since I've been on. I figured it's time to get on tonight just to have some discussions about the usual. How can we reverse type 2 diabetes naturally without having to be on medications, without having to worry about being on medications? And so, if you're tuning in here, if you're watching this, you're probably looking forward to some tips as to how you can reverse prediabetes and type 2 diabetes successfully. And so tonight, I wanted to talk about the common issues that get in the way of reversing type 2 diabetes. And as a coach, as a physician, I can attest that I hear it all. So I know from a mindset standpoint what gets in the way of type 2 diabetes, of reversing type 2 diabetes. And I also know that when the mindset is an issue, so comes the denial. And so people tend to latch on to common myths that keep them stuck in type 2 diabetes. So I wanted to take tonight to debunk a few myths that keep people stuck, keep people wasting time on gimmicks that don't work, so that you can let those go and move forward with a strategy that really works. If for those of you who don't know who I am Dr. Tharp. I'm a board certified internal medicine physician. I am a coach as well. I have dedicated my time not just to rounding in the hospital setting, but also dedicated my time to helping women reverse type 2 diabetes naturally. And it can absolutely be done. So that is the first myth I'm going to debunk tonight, is that type 2 diabetes is curable, it is reversible with the right strategy. And I know some of you here might be skeptical just because you feel like you've tried everything and it's not working. So, I want to go ahead first and debunk the myths, and then we can talk a bit about what the right strategy involves. So, the first myth that I want to bring up, and I actually heard this from someone I am working with right now. And as the coach, I had to, you know, definitely debunk that one with the person I'm working with so that we can move forward with the right strategy. And so, the client that I'm working with had a very high blood sugar, and she's at the beginning of her journey, had a very high blood sugar, and her instinct was to say, well, it was high because I ate dinner late. And the reality is that is not true. So if you are seeing high blood sugar readings and you're blaming it on eating late last night, it's not true. Okay. It's a sign that if you're starting to notice those high blood sugars trending more and more up in the morning, and now you're tempted to go into this intermittent fast, right? Don't do that, because intermittent fasting alone will not reverse type 2 diabetes. But what those high blood sugars in the morning mean is that you're getting worse. Okay. So if you have been getting readings in the teens, 100 teens, and now you're getting readings in the 150s, red flags should be going off. And so I want to let you know, do not blame it on eating last night. That is not what's happening. Of course, your diet matters. Of course, it does matter, right? But your overall diet matters. So, cherry picking what meal you had and blaming that particular meal at the time of day that you had it on that high blood sugar is not the right way to go. So, your eyes should be open and alarm bells should be going off. That very likely, if you go to the doctor, your A1C is going to be higher if you're starting to notice higher blood sugars in the morning. So that is absolutely a myth. Eating dinner late should not lead to consistently high blood sugars in the morning. So remember, that is a myth. It's a sign of denial, it's a sign of procrastination. So, again, that's a big myth. And we are going to talk about the right things to do. Some other reasons your blood sugar could be running high. Well, if you have insulin resistance, we know that you have type 2 diabetes, you have insulin resistance. There is something called a dawn phenomenon, where in the morning, your body, in preparation for the day, about 3 a.m., thereabout in the morning, very early morning, our bodies produce cortisol, in an effort to get us ready for the demands of the day. Well, cortisol is a hormone that stimulates glucose, right? It stimulates our body to break down, it stimulates the liver to release glucose, and so we get more glucose in our bloodstream despite what we had, despite, if even if we didn't eat. So some of you might be saying it's the opposite. You don't eat in the evenings and your blood sugar is high. And so it's just, again, another sign of that baseline insulin resistance. But there is something called a dawn phenomenon, where the body, your blood sugar rises in response to hormonal signals, particularly cortisol is one. And then the liver, which also helps with glucose regulation, also releases glucose into the bloodstream, leading to that higher number in the morning. How do you fix that? The right strategy, right? You fix it the way you would fix insulin resistance and reverse type 2 diabetes in general. So that is a big myth that I want to debunk. And I want to encourage you, do not linger in procrastination because you're saying it's just that one meal that triggered it. The other thing is, the other myth is, my diabetes must not be that bad because I'm not having symptoms. And the reality is, the harsh reality is, diabetes, no matter where your blood sugars are, whether they're considered borderline, diabetes is causing silent damage in your body. It is damaging every single organ, vital organ in your body, even though you don't feel it. So, again, that is no reason to put off finding the right strategy, finding a way to reverse it naturally. Because, absolutely, no matter where your blood sugars are, if it's outside of the range, okay, the normal range for blood sugar is 70 to 100. So if your blood sugar is sitting at 101, it's doing damage. So don't settle for, I'm just borderline, or I'm not having symptoms, therefore this is not an urgent issue. And it's even worse if you're saying, I'm not having symptoms, therefore I'm not going to take medication and I'm not going to do anything else about it. So remember, if you are choosing not to do medications, then you must do something. Otherwise, you are doomed. Okay. So it's really important. That's a really a point I want to drive home. So many people that I talk to say, I absolutely am against taking medication, but then they walk away from taking real action, right? And the reality is, you've just chosen the diabetes. You've just chosen for diabetes to do its damage in your body. You've chosen that a year or 2 years from now, you will have complications if you choose not to be on medication, but you don't go with the right strategy. So just remember that if you're not going to choose a natural approach, you should choose the medications. Okay. It's there is no gray area there. So again, if your blood sugar is sitting 101, you should not be satisfied with that and say, oh, I'm good, I'm not going to do anything about it, because it is doing damage. And unfortunately, when you do have symptoms, it means you're pretty far gone. Okay, so you don't want to ever experience symptoms from it. The other myth that I want to debunk is, okay, you've chosen the medication, okay, and now you say, well, I'm just going to take the medications and I'll be okay. That is another myth. Why do you think people end up on 2 medications, 3 medications? How do people end up on insulin? It's because you chose the medication, but you did not choose the natural strategy as well. So even if you do choose medication, even if you are on medications, you must also choose to go for a strategy that will control your blood sugars through lifestyle, right? Otherwise, you are going to continue to advance. The reason people are on multiple medications is because as it advances and one medication stops working, Then next step is to go to the second medication. So if you're on metformin, that is your first sign that things need to change. Okay. If you are now on Jardiance or glipizide, then or any one of the others, there is your confirmation that things are progressing. Okay, that is your sign. So you might not be having symptoms, but now you're on two medications. It means things are progressing. And so you should be pretty alarmed by that, because once it's advancing, then you know the damage is being done. So that is absolutely a myth. The strategy that I encourage should absolutely be done, even if you're on medications. It's not an all or none issue. Okay. No matter what, if you want to keep your blood sugars controlled and reverse those numbers, it's not an all or none. If you're going to be on medications, you're already on medications, you should implement natural strategies so that you can prevent the disease from progressing. um, the next is, if I lose a few pounds, my diabetes will go away completely. And that is not true. So there are a few, so a majority of people who I work with do have to lose weight. Okay. Insulin resistance does go hand in hand with excess body fat. But there are some people who actually need to gain weight and are struggling with type 2 diabetes. And to be honest, those are the women who are 1000% just frustrated, because there are these women, they come to me, they've lost 30 pounds, over the last 6 months. They go to their doctor, get their A1C checked, and it's still high. And now they're really frustrated, because do you know how much effort it takes to lose 30 pounds? So they're thinking, I lost 30 pounds, my numbers are going to be good, and it's not. And so, what I will say there is not excess body fat or losing weight is not always the answer. What it boils down to is that if you have, it boils down to having the right tissue on your body, and that is muscle. If you lose weight too quickly, if you lose weight too quickly, what can happen is that can actually backfire. Because if you lose, there are many people out there offering, programs that you shed 20 pounds in 30 days. And I cringe when I hear that. I cringe. Because if you're losing 20 pounds in 30 days, it means you've lost a lot of muscle along the way. You're losing weight too rapidly, and that makes insulin resistance worse. So keep that in mind. Rapid weight loss is not the answer. So can weight loss play a role? 1000% it can. But if the weight loss is too rapid, you end up doing yourself a disfavor, and you end up making things worse and frustrating yourself. So the process should involve building muscle, putting muscle on your body, and at the same time shedding body fat. And so I call that strategy is called body recomposition. Of course, that strategy entails a system based approach. So there are many factors that go into that approach, but that is the right approach to successfully reverse insulin resistance, to successfully reverse type 2 diabetes. So weight loss alone is not the answer. And one thing to keep in mind, and this is a good time to bring this up, are these GLP-1s that are being used out there. It's being hailed as a miracle drug, right? It's being hailed as a medication that is going to fix all the issues. And the reality is, GLP-1s, otherwise known, some of you might know this as Ozempic. A question I get frequently is, do I advise Ozempic? And I would say Ozempic tends to lead to that rapid weight loss. And what happens is, with that rapid weight loss, you lose valuable muscle mass. And when you lose your muscle mass, you lose your metabolism. And when you lose your metabolism, your blood sugars and your A1C goes higher. So those medications do lead to rapid weight loss. And in the beginning, you will see a decline in your A1C. But over time it leads to other issues. You don't feel good on the medication. So do I advise a GLP-1? I'll say that's a discussion between you and your doctor, but make it an informed discussion with your doctor. If you're doing GLP-1s or Ozempic in combination with lifestyle, then you have a better chance, right? If you are implementing a strategy with the medication, then it can definitely work for you. Okay. Um, so just remember, weight loss alone is not going to solve the problem. So again, if you're intermittent fasting, if you're eating one meal a day, thinking that's going to solve your problem, it is not. Okay, because you lose a valuable muscle mass. And so, yes, it comes down to a strategy, it comes down to a systematic approach, but that is the right way to do it. Um, Now, the other is my A1C is better. So I can relax my routine. So this is going to bring me right back to those GLP-1 shots or the Ozempic, right? It's a perfect example. Many people go on them to achieve weight loss, and the numbers do get better, but then the cost becomes unsustainable, or you start to experience side effects. You decide you want to stop the medication, and then guess what happens? You start to gain weight rapidly. That A1C creeps back up, and you're back at square one. So that is the other downside of the Ozempic and the GLP-1s, is that once you stop the medication, a vast majority of people actually regain the weight and regain it rapidly. And so you're right back in square one, right? So again, if you are taking a medication with no strategy, then it's not going to work, right? You're going to see your numbers go up, it's going to stop working, and then, then you're frustrated. So, the A1C getting better initially does not mean you should relax. It means, again, you need to make sure you're implementing the right strategies. Now, if you're doing it with me, you are doing the right strategy from the get go. But if you're doing it with medication, with Ozempic, then of course, strategy is everything to keep that weight off and to give yourself the best chance of keeping that A1C down. The changes that are implemented are not a diet. So that is my first approach. And actually, someone left a review on my page, and she clearly stated that, because I drill that into everyone I work with. The changes we're making is not a diet. It's not, okay, we've gotten through X amount of time, we've made the changes, and then you go back to eating however you want. It's all about keeping the right strategy forever and ever. If you want to be well, if you want to avoid type 2 diabetes, if you want the type 2 diabetes not to get worse, you don't want to have complications, you want to be there for your kids, you want to be there for your grandkids, you want to maintain your independence, you don't want to end up, bed bound, you don't want to end up in a nursing home, then you have to do it forever, right? And that is the choice. Again, there is no gray area. There's no gray area. If you truly want to reverse type 2 diabetes, it's about doing it forever. So, for all of you who are doing unsustainable diets, intermittent fasting is one of them. So, if you're not eating lunch until 1 p.m., if you're not eating breakfast until 1 p.m., and then that turns out to be your only meal for the day, and then that's not sustainable. You're miserable, right? You're absolutely miserable, you're low energy, you feel weak. That is why, if you are eating one meal for the day in this intermittent fasting window, and then you find yourself at night craving chips, craving ice cream, then guess what? It's not working. It's not sustainable, right? So it's all about a sustainable approach so that you can keep your A1C down and truly achieve your goal forever, not just for a time period. So again, You never approach reversing type 2 diabetes and decreasing your A1C like it's a diet. It's not. And so, something I always advise is that, yes, I'm being totally transparent here. To go on this journey to truly reverse type 2 diabetes, there are things you're going to have to give up. So, what I explain to the women I work with is you have to treat it like an allergy. If you had an allergy to egg, would you eat the egg? Even though you love egg, if you had an allergy to egg, would you eat it? And very likely that answer is no, because you know at the end of the day, if you eat that egg, you're going to have a severe allergic reaction and possibly lose your life to that, right? So you definitely would not eat something you're allergic to. You have to think of insulin resistance the same way. You have to understand that if you continue down a certain path, that it's going to a place that is going to have devastating impact on your life. And I say that confidently because I'm a doctor in the hospital setting. I'm a hospitalist. I see every day what happens to people who ignore their diabetes, who say, I don't like so and so, so I don't eat that. I'd prefer to eat this. That is what happens if you're not willing to make a choice about what your future will look like. Then you're going to end up in the place where I would not want to meet you, and that's the hospital setting, right? So just remember, you do have to make choices. You do have to give up some things because your body can't process it. Okay, so again, it's never treat it like a diet. And the this is a big one. I don't eat sugar, so my blood sugar should be fine, right? And again, I am positive many of you here um, are actually frustrated by that statement because you don't eat sugar. It's actually a majority, I would say 99% of the women I work with are not eating junk food. They're not eating white rice. They're not eating white bread. They're not drinking juice. They're not drinking um, sugary stuff. They've given all of that up by the time they get to me. And that is why they're so frustrated because the blood sugars just still aren't really improving. So I know that you've given up the obvious things. I know that. Um, and so you're wondering why your blood sugar hasn't responded. And the truth is, there's a leak somewhere. And that leak is just very, very subtle most of the time. That leak is right there in the healthy foods that you're eating, and you don't realize it. Usually, once you've taken these steps, it's a sign that you need that additional help to identify those leaks. Everybody is different. Everybody has their little leaks, their little leaks that need to be plugged. For example, one of my clients, she was doing everything right, and her, she was still having, high fasting blood sugars. And we sat down together, we did an audit, what's going on, and everything seemed to be fine. I had a hard time pinpointing what the issue was. And then she said to me, well, you know what, there is one thing. She thought it was insignificant that she didn't have to mention it. And she said, well, there's this one thing, I tend to at night eat a piece of ginger candy. It's just a small piece of ginger candy. And that is where the leak was. So, ginger, even though it's a small piece of candy, candy has a lot of sugar. It's highly concentrated in sugar. And this candy was to kind of, it was just one of those things she always did, but she didn't think it was of significance because it's just a small amount. And then when we looked at what the nutrition label said, it had an astounding amount of sugar in there. So sometimes the leaks are things you would not even think of because they're so small. They seem so insignificant. How could that be doing it? And the reality is, very, very small things can make a huge difference with your blood sugars as well. So sometimes it boils down to sitting down with someone who again has the expertise and can spot those things. Um, so, again, I understand you've made all the right changes, but sometimes there's still leaks that need to be plugged, even in the healthy foods. And so that is pretty much, I think I've covered all of those points. I've pretty much covered all the points I wanted to cover tonight about, why the blood sugars, the myths surrounding blood sugars. And to be honest, all of those areas that I mentioned is this puts you in this sense of denial, of putting it off. What I would also say is that it leads to frustration. It leads to you saying, okay, obviously type 2 diabetes isn't reversible. And so you're kind of giving to fate, right? And that's the last thing I want for you, is to give in to a fate that you don't have to give in to. You don't have to give in to a poor outcome. You can beat it with the right strategies. And as you know, if you've watched my lives before, the strategy is very system based. It's several things rolled up into one. Um, Diet, of course, is a huge part of it, as you know. Again, identifying what your body needs, how much of something your body needs is important. I will say just a few pointers, a quick pointers that you can start implementing into your day to day life, and maybe you'll see a difference. Is get your protein in. So, get your protein in breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Protein helps maintain that muscle mass that we just talked about. Your muscle mass is the glucose burning engine in your body. As we age, we automatically lose muscle. So it's very commonly known that we lose bone as we age, but muscle is the same thing. So, in order to help, just like you would take calcium for your bones, you should be having protein. And a common theme is that many people are not getting enough protein. You're protein deficient. And so that exacerbates high glucose spikes because you don't have good protein in each of your meals. As you can tell by now, I absolutely cannot stand intermittent fasting because I see where intermittent fasting has taken people on so many tangents and wasted their time, frankly. And there is a place for fasting, but guess what time of the day it is? The time for fasting is at night when you're sleeping, because you should be getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep at night, anyways. Your fasting time is at night. During the day, you should be focused on feeding your body and giving it what it needs to function. So you should be getting 3 meals a day, maybe 4 meals a day, depending on what your body needs, and it should have protein. Fiber is important. Getting enough fiber and protein, you will very likely see an improvement in your blood sugars. Fiber is something, again, that a lot of people lack. A big sign that you are suffering from constipation if you're not going to the bathroom every day. If you're not having bowel movements every day, then there is your signal that you need to be getting fiber in your diet. So fiber is really important as well, at least 25 grams of fiber a day. And to go back to protein, again, everybody's different. Some people need more protein, some people require less protein. But I would say aim for 30 grams of protein in each meal. So think about a chicken thigh would probably put you between 20 and 30 grams of protein. About 16 shrimp would probably put you in a realm of about 30 grams of protein. About 5 ounces of salmon would probably put you in that arena. So you want to have then again a good chunk of protein on your plate, and then the fiber should be coming from your vegetables, right? A vegetable should be on your plate. Um, all the meals, and I'm sure again this is not nothing new for you, But what could be new is understanding why we say veggies should be on the plate, why protein should be on your plate. And that is probably a new concept. And I'm hoping that it paints now a more a picture that you can grasp the urgency and implement it more readily. So vegetables should be on your plate to help with getting fiber, in addition to the many other nutrients out there. And then your healthy fats are also important. So that's actually another big myth, right? We don't get enough fat in our diet, and some people become go to the low fat diet thinking they're supposed to eliminate fat and that's going to help with blood sugars. No, it actually does the opposite. It's actually worse for your blood sugars. So, healthy fats help to keep you full. So, you're not eating the bad stuff, you're not having heavy cravings. It helps you absorb vitamins, particularly vitamin A, D, E, and K, and it slows the absorption of carbohydrates and therefore blunts those glucose spikes. So, having healthy fat on your plate. Now, healthy fat or good fats, you should not be eating anything that's fried or breaded and fried. You should not be eating anything that contains vegetable oil, hydrogenated oil, seed oils. You should be going for exclusively the good fats. And the good fats are your avocado oil, your olive oil, your olives, and then, of course, you have seeds and nuts, but many people can get in trouble when it comes to seed and nuts. So, seeds and nuts are a source of healthy fat, but in moderation. So those are your healthy fats. Outside of that, you should not be having any other form of fat. So you should be incorporating those into your diet as well. Again, the dosing of those are critical, right? Because remember, healthy foods can cause a problem. So this is where understanding exactly how much of each thing your body needs so you can give your body those things in the right amounts. So, of course, fats, if you're eating too much of even a good fat, you might end up gaining weight. So, it's really important to understand your balance. Again, that's a discussion you can have with me. That's a discussion you can have with your doctor if they have the time to explain those things to you, which I highly doubt. Or you can talk to a nutritionist who might be able to break that down. But again, the timing might be limited there. So, healthy fats are important to have on your plate as well. So, we talked about protein, fiber, healthy fats, and the last thing are carbohydrates. So, the carbohydrates, our body needs it. Um, Absolutely, our bodies need it. But the question here is, what type of carbohydrates are you consuming? Now, if you are going to the extreme and you've completely cut carbs out of your diet, again, not sustainable. Absolutely not sustainable. If you went on a keto diet and you're here right now listening to me, then I have a feeling that keto diet just wasn't doing it, right? Keto is number one, keto doesn't focus on good fats. It's very focused on protein, but the keto diet, it gives very, very, very minimal amount of carbohydrates. And so the balance is just off. The balance is off. And so many people are not able to sustain that for the long term. So keto is not the way to go. Absolutely not the way to go. It does not give your body what you need. And sometimes people get into a lot of trouble with the keto because they actually start to eat the wrong things. They start to eat bacon and they're using bacon as a protein source. They're eating sausages and sliced meats as a protein source. And those are bad protein sources, processed, full of salt. You don't want to do those things. So, unfortunately, keto does not consider your health journey. Keto does not consider where you are in your health journey. It does not consider that if you have type 2 diabetes, you very likely have high cholesterol. It does not consider that you very likely have high blood pressure. So keto is not the answer either. And that's a very common thing that I see. Are people who come to me are actually afraid that keto is something they're going to have to do because they've done it and it didn't work, it wasn't sustainable, and it's really miserable. And the reality is, you actually get yourself into more trouble. You probably end up on more blood pressure meds. You probably end up on a cholesterol med if you're not already on one. And they probably go up on the dose of the cholesterol medicine because your lipid panel will come back terrible just based on how people tend to eat with keto. So keto is not the choice. Now, do you have to watch your carbs? 1000%. I again, I to be transparent, okay, I'm not here offering a magic pill. I'm not here offering a solution that will allow you to have your cake and eat it, right? And a lot of people struggle with their love for carbohydrates. You do have to watch how much carbs you eat. Absolutely. But the question is, what is the quality of the carbohydrates that you're eating? It's all about quality. So, are there carbohydrates that you are, as someone who's insulin resistant, you are allergic to? Yes. So, again, you have to treat some things like an allergy. In order to be successful, you have to treat some things like an allergy. And so, there are a lot of carbohydrates in our society today that are terrible. Our food is becoming more and more processed. It's becoming more and more filled with carbohydrates and things that destroy our body. That is why we have an epidemic of type 2 diabetes. Even children are developing type 2 diabetes. Even like very young adults, okay, late teens, early 20s, people in their 30s are developing type 2 diabetes at an alarming rate because of how processed the foods are. The food is loaded with refined processed carbohydrates. That's where our food source is. We're getting too much of it. So you are going to have to cut out, if you haven't done that already, refined carbohydrates. So you want to cut out your white rice, white bread. Again, most of the people who I work with have already done those things, but they've switched from white rice to or white bread to wheat bread. And the reality is, wheat bread is just as bad as white bread. The problem there is the marketing has worked so well that people start to say, okay, whole wheat bread is just automatically healthier. Well, if you're struggling with insulin resistance, whole wheat bread is not necessarily healthier because of insulin resistance. Whole wheat bread is pretty much just a processed carbohydrate. It's refined as well. So if you are going to switch breads, there is one recommendation that I will give, and that is Ezekiel bread is an option. Ezekiel bread is not as processed, high in protein, high in fiber. So if you want to do a bread, you want to go for one that's high in fiber and high in protein. Now, a question that I get is about keto bread, and I would say no, don't go for those things that are keto because they're just processed. So, to answer the question in a simple manner, carbohydrate should be as natural as possible and complex. What I mean by complex is the carbohydrate you choose to eat is high in fiber. Again, in its natural source, it's providing you vitamins and minerals. And a good example of that, for example, sweet potato is considered a complex carbohydrate. Squashes are considered complex carbohydrate. So the reality is that yes, you do have to get rid of those refined carbohydrates, but after I work with the people that I work with, they're not missing it by the time we're done because we structure our diet in such a way that we're satisfied, we're energetic, we're watching our blood sugars get better. And so, by the end of it, people say, wow, I didn't know I could live without those things. So that pretty much ties it up for me for tonight. I hope you got some good takeaways here. The biggest takeaway I would say is if you're going to do any changes this week, protein on your plate, eat 3 meals a day, and put a veggie on your plate as well. And see if you can focus on getting more fiber in. And if you're doing those things, then probably some of the leaks that we talked about, those holes are being plugged, and you will notice an improvement in your blood sugars. If you really want that additional help, if you want that additional support, then that is where my program, the Reverse Now and the Reverse Her initiative, comes into play. I have dedicated my time to building this program to help people achieve sustainable changes that will empower them to know what they should be doing, right? Because the biggest question I get is, what should I eat? I just don't know what to eat. You've cut out so many things, blood sugar isn't responding, and you just don't know what to eat. So I would say that I've structured that my plan specifically geared towards insulin resistance, towards reversing it, and being sustainable, meaning you can keep it up forever. And when you're done, you're actually going to be telling people how to eat, what to eat, how to do it, because now you know. Um, if you want to find out more about the program that I offer, you can go ahead and click the link in my bio. You can explore there. There's many different resources that I have there, so that you can get to know me better, get to understand what's available. If it's something that you're really serious about, if you're ready to make change, um, then you can go ahead and book that 15-minute discovery call. My wellness coordinator, Yuri, is also right alongside me, helping me, with the process. And so she does the calls with you to make sure that you're the right fit. And if you are the right fit, then we can always sit down together in an hour-long conversation where we talk about you, what you've tried, what didn't work, and how we would move forward. So again, if you're serious, this is for serious inquiries only. If you're still thinking about it, you're not sure if you need it, if you want to, then I would say that please reserve that call for someone who really needs that spot and wants that spot. Otherwise, there is a free meal plan that I have there as well. You can always grab that if you're still in this phase where you're trying to figure things out. You can always grab the free meal plan, and when you grab that meal plan, just do the quizzes. The quizzes will help you to see where you are, help you revamp your kitchen. There's a grocery list there, and then you have the meal plan. The meal plan, you can always tweak ingredients, you can always tweak things to your liking, as long, again, as it's blood sugar friendly. And that pretty much ends it for me. So if you have any questions, um, if you have any questions, then please feel free to drop the questions in the comments, or you can always leave a comment under the live, so that way I can address it. If you have the question, then I can tell you many other people have that question. So it's very helpful, not just for you, but for everyone else when you do ask those questions. And I will definitely address it. If you if you have a question that is more personal, you can always send a DM as well. And I or Yuri will definitely address that and help you figure things out as well. All right, with that, I am going to say good night, and I hope that you will try some of the strategies we talked about tonight. Good night.